You ever get that, like, intense craving for a fizzy drink?
Mm.
You know that feeling,
Right,
right?
absolutely, that burst of refreshment.
Yeah. And I gotta know, like, who are the masterminds behind that perfect fizz? That's what I'm all about today, diving deep into the world of carbonation operators.
It's pretty interesting. You'd think it was as simple as add bubbles, but there's actually a lot more to it.
Right. So we've got this career guide from RoleCatcher, and honestly, I had no clue how much goes into this job. So let's break it down. What does a carbonation operator actually do?
Well, at the core, they're the ones infusing those drinks with CO2, the gas that makes all the bubbles we love.
Makes sense.
But it's about way more than just injecting gas. They're like conductors, making sure the pressure's right, the temperature's perfect. It's about getting the CO2 to dissolve into the drink just right.
Okay, so precision is key here. What happens if things get a little get off?
Let's just say nobody wants a flat soda or one that's like a volcano.
True. This guide also mentioned something about needing a solid chemistry background.
Hmm.
Is that, like, for real? You need to be a scientist to make soda.
It's more about understanding the reactions, how different drinks behave with CO2, how temperature affects everything.
Huh.
Think about when you pop open a soda bottle, all that pressure gets released and boom, bubbles. A carbonation operator's controlling that on a huge scale.
That's wild. Okay, so there's clearly a science to it. But is there even a demand for this job anymore? Like, with everyone going for the healthier drinks and all that?
It's a good question, actually. People are definitely more health conscious these days, right?
Totally.
But here's the thing. The classic carbonated drinks, they're holding strong. People still love their sodas.
So this isn't going anywhere.
Not a chance. And that means carbonation operators are still in high demand. This RoleCatcher report even says that need's only going to grow over time.
Wow, all right. This is already full of surprises. So let's say someone's hearing this and they're intrigued. What's the work environment actually like? We talking lab coats and beakers or something else?
Think more along the lines of a production line. It can get pretty busy.
So it's more like factory life than mad scientist stuff. What's a typical day actually look like for a carbonation operator?
It's pretty dynamic. You've got the machines constantly humming, bottles clinking around. You can definitely hear that CO2 whooshing, too.
Sounds kind of chaotic.
It's all part of the job. You need a good eye for detail and to be a bit of a problem solver, that's for sure.
Makes sense. Okay, so walk me through it. What are they actually doing all day?
All right, so picture this. Our carbonation operator, they're clocking in first thing in the morning, right? First things first, they got to make sure all the equipment's good to go.
Right. Safety first.
Exactly. Checking pressure gauges, CO2 levels. Think of it like a pilot doing their pre-flight check, making sure everything's A-okay.
But instead of flying a plane, they're making sure the soda's going to be fizzy.
Exactly. And throughout the day, they're monitoring that carbonation process, making adjustments depending on what kind of drink they're making, because, not all fizz is created equal.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Like a sparkling water is going to need a lighter touch than, say, a cola, right?
Definitely. Who knew there was so much to think about? This guide also breaks down the career path, like stepping stones. You've got entry level, then junior, and then senior carbonation operator. What's the climb like up that ladder?
Well, it's all about gaining experience and taking on more responsibility as you go. At the entry level, you're really focused on learning the ropes, how to operate everything, making sure the CO2 levels are on point, and obviously being safe.
Gotcha. So building that strong foundation. What about when you get to junior operator then? More pressure.
You could say that. That's where you start tackling those tougher problems, like if a machine starts acting up or a sensor needs calibrating. You're also working more closely with your team, sharing what you've learned.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right? Okay, last but not least, we've got the top of the fizz pyramid, senior carbonation operator. What do they do that's so special?
That's where things get really interesting. You're in a more strategic role. You might even be overseeing the whole carbonation operation, developing standard operating procedures.
Wait, hold on. Standard operating procedures? For bubbles?
Yeah, basically. Think of it like the rule book for making sure the fizz is always perfect. They're figuring out the exact CO2 levels for every single drink, making sure everything stays squeaky clean, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And it goes even deeper. They might analyze all sorts of data to make things more efficient, maybe even test out some new techniques.
Seriously. Data analysis for soda. You learn something new every day.
Absolutely. It could be anything from how much CO2 they're using to, making sure every single bottle has that perfect amount of fizz.
So someone's out there listening and they're like, all right, sign me up for the fizz life. What's the interview process actually look like for a carbonation operator?
Well, this RoleCatcher guide is amazing, actually. They've got a whole section on common interview
Oh,
questions.
nice, like a cheat sheet.
Basically, gives you a good feel for what they're looking for.
Okay, so hit me with it. What kind of questions are we talking?
Some are pretty standard, like, why do you want to do this job? But obviously, you can't just be like, I love soda.
Right. Got to be a little deeper than that.
Exactly. Talk about what excites you about the industry, the science behind it, the precision, that kind of thing.
Show me you've done your homework.
For sure. And then there are the technical questions, getting into the nitty-gritty of the job.
Makes sense.
Like, how would you make sure the quality is always top-notch? How do you troubleshoot if a machine's acting up? That's where knowing your stuff about CO2 levels and all that really comes in handy.
Okay, so come prepared. Do they ever throw in those curveball questions? Just to
Mm-hmm.
see how you think on your feet.
Oh, absolutely. There was one in the guide that really stuck out to me. It was, imagine there's a sudden production delay, like everything's grinding to a halt. What do you do? How do you prioritize?
Ooh, yeah. High pressure situation.
Literally. They want to see that you can stay calm, make smart decisions, and keep things moving smoothly, even when chaos hits.
I feel like that's a good life lesson in general.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting an edge, does RoleCatcher offer any, tools or anything to help people ace these interviews?
Oh, for sure. They've got this really cool AI tool that analyzes your resume and even gives feedback on your application answers. It's like having a career coach right there on your computer.
That's awesome. So much more than just a job board.
Totally. They even have a feature where you can practice your interview answers and get feedback from the AI. It'll analyze your delivery, everything.
Dang, that's next level stuff. Well, this deep dive has been a wild ride. I've got to say, I had no idea how much went into making our favorite fizzy drinks. The science, the career path, AI interview prep.
Yeah,
It's a whole world out there.
it really is.
But before we sign off, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. We've talked a lot about the demand for carbonation operators now, but what about the future? What happens as people's tastes change? Will we need, craft soda specialists? Or maybe experts in naturally carbonated drinks? Could technology change the game entirely? Lots to ponder, maybe with a nice fizzy drink in hand. Thanks for joining us on this bubbly adventure.